Welcome, everybody, to our next episode of Generational Gains, our podcasts where we talk about all things in life, mainly financial stuff, business, real estate, different love, family, all kinds of stuff. And so it's been a while since we've talked about different financial management tools. We want to talk about that a little bit today. And before we get into different strategies with running businesses and cash flow and managing funds, and talking about personal finances and how we budget and use our money, I thought it'd be good to mention just, what budgeting really is and how the basics of it are and what we do with it, how we budget. And so last year I was learning real estate, learning business, just kind of getting into things and trying to budget my funds. And I feel like it was a little confusing, a little hard to do, and hard to know where everything's going, and also keep under budgets of what we have. But I learned how important it is to actually budget. If you don't save money, you can't do cool financial strategies, different tax things, different investments. You need to save money, and you need to know where your money's at. That's the most important thing. And so most people don't. So I want to talk about that to start with today. If you have any thoughts on just what it means to budget, how you can budget, and if you're not saving anything, or what does that look like? How do you do that?
So it's a lot. So look, first, it's a fact that one of the main reasons for divorce in this country is over finances. And, call it divorce, call it separation. I'd even say one of the major things that happen in partnerships could be because of finances, how it's managed, and the costs associated. So it's a big topic, and I am no expert on this. So I think I'm going to share things that I have done. And also I feel like maybe I'll even get into some things that I implemented with my kids. Maybe they didn't really know what I was doing, but I felt like I knew what I was doing. And to kind of teach them about budgeting. And so I am a little curious if you're aware of some of the things I did. But first, I remember when I was 22, and so I don't know if you and Anna did this, but I put together. It was scary. Like, this was 23 years ago. I was like, all right, I'm going to live on my own. What are my list of expenses, right? So first and foremost, and I know this could be elementary for some of you, but I'm going to get into some deeper stuff on maybe things that, if this is too elementary for you, things that maybe that you can use and apply to with your family or with your kids. But for me, just to kind of start, I listed all my expenses, right? Health insurance, life insurance. I even got when I was young, just term, right? It was like $25 a month, and cell phone, and like I wanted to see what that list looked like. And I remember vividly, I was like, okay, a car payment, car insurance. I mean, all the things. I remember, like, all in, I needed to make $2,500 a month, right? I was like $2,500. I paid the mortgage back then. Mm-hmm. I really sound old now, but $2,500, and I could pay everything. And then, but my goal was to make $3,000 a month. $3,000 at $500 I could have, and in there I had a little bit of like movies and like nothing crazy, but like enough. Yeah. So my first advice is know what your expenses are. Yeah. Right. And then after you know what your expenses are, the advice I give is you always need to treat savings and saving for investments as an expense. Like shouldn't be the last thing on your list. Mm-hmm. And I didn't make it the last thing on my list. I put it at the top of my list. I'm going to save this much money. I'm going to put it in my bank account. Like where it does nothing.
Just save.
And I'm going to put this much into investing. And again, it was little for me, but, and then all my other expenses. And I looked at all those things as an expense that I had to hit. And it just became my goal. And so that was my first step as far as budgeting goes. But
that's the first step for everyone too.
But I don't know if everyone does it. And
most people don't.
They spend first. And so the first step was that. But then the second step, which was kind of was the how-to step. Like, okay, so my expenses are this. So let's just say today that, it's not 3,000, but it's 10,000. Okay, so the number's 10,000. Or if your number's 5,000, whatever your number is, you need to know what that is. So that's your new goal. And so, okay, so I've got to make this much money. And a lot of people have, 9-to-5 jobs, W-2 income, which is normal and perfectly acceptable. But it might not allow you to hit your dreams and expectations. So you might have to, you have your job that brings in and pays most of your expenses, hopefully all of them. And then, but you have these aspirations of saving X amount of dollars per month or per quarter and to invest. So you might have other outside opportunities, business, just jobs. I got friends that will have their main job and then they also have the little gigs they have once in a while to make an extra $500 or $1,000. Whatever that is, knowing your numbers first. Number two, how do you get to your number? So that was my next step as an entrepreneur. I was like, okay, so for $3,000, what do I need to be doing every month? And from a life insurance perspective, I remember selling term life insurance when I first started. Like, okay, if I have one new appointment every single week and I sell 2 a month, so half, I could pay my bills. And so that's where it began. I was like, okay, so got to get 2 sales on average, right? Sometimes 3. So how do I get 2 sales? Well, I need to have 6 appointments because my closing ratio wasn't great. So if I had 6 to 8 appointments, so I literally broke it down like that. So if I need 6 to 8 appointments, how many people do I need to talk to get 6 appointments? And that was like 30, right? So once I knew my numbers, and I think knowing your numbers from every perspective, you're able to actually hit your goals and exceed your goals. So I knew 30 appointments, 30 leads, 6 appointments, 2 to 3 sales. I knew that. So now I had to work towards that. And so if you know your numbers, then you can start, hitting, and covering your budget and expenses. So that's how I started.
Well, it's like if you don't know your goal, then you're never going to hit anything. You're not going to improve. You're not going to progress. You have to have goals of what you're trying to do. And so, like you said, breaking it down is what most people don't do. I talk to people every day. I'd say probably half the people I talk to know what's happening with their money. They know how much they save. They know their income. They know their take home. They know what they can do. The other half say, here's, I think what I make. Here's what I make an hour. That's about it. Here's how much I have in my bank account. That's all they know. And so, one, having more awareness of your money is huge. But from there, it's like, well, I got my personal finances down. I'm looking to put some money in investments and whatever I like and understand, whatever it may be, some in X, Y, and Z. I'm happy. I feel like this will provide a good future for me. Now let's talk about, with growing on that with investments and businesses, financial management's important. Understanding your cash flow, your operatings, it's all extremely important and difficult. And that's something I learned this year too, is if you're going to buy a real estate property, knowing what you're going to owe monthly on those debt payments, knowing when you have to pay investors back and how much you're going to owe them, understanding the numbers of your cash flow can change the game. And it can get hard if your deal goes longer than expected and you owe more than you were expecting to. So when running a business, a small business, when you first started, how are you managing the finances?
So look, I just shared with you on the personal side, kind of just when I first started. I actually feel like that still applies as you get older. And if you can stay a bit regimented, it's harder now. I'm not as regimented as it was before, but I think it's also important. And number two, and when it comes to business, you're asking, I did the same thing with business. I wanted to scale my business, so I needed to hire people. And I was like, crap. I need to make $60,000 a year now, and I need to hire someone that I'm going to pay $40,000 a year. Holy crap. Like that's a big, and so it was a math game. It's like, okay, so I just need to do this much more in real estate or in sales. So that's, having a budget and knowing what your numbers are is critical.
And it allows you to scale because you know what you're going to be needing. Yeah, that makes sense.
It truly is a math equation and a hustle. It's hard work. The other thing I was going to share with you from a finance, probably one of the most eye-opening experiences I had in business was with Horizon Trust Company. I don't know how long ago. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And we were spending all this energy on how do we grow? How do we get more accounts and more revenue to increase the profitability? And I think most companies focus on that every single year.
Yeah.
Still do. But what I was missing is, what about all the waste and expenses? And And now I try as a company and with an executive team at least once a year to review the expenses. You should do this personally as well, because I mean, how many of those little Apple charges do we get all the time? Like all of a sudden you just ignore it because it's like, oh, it's only $2.99. It's like, oh, I don't even use that app. Well, imagine that on a bigger scale in businesses. Yeah. So I had found, I don't know how long ago, 5 or 6 years ago, that I had let 5 or 6 years go by not paying attention to all the little expenses, all the different CRMs and different upgrades, and I cleaned it out. There was things we weren't even using that we were paying for. And so I made just as much increase in profits from getting rid of the waste as I did in finding new revenue.
That's great.
And I think lots of businesses need to do this check more often. I probably need to do it more often. I feel like we do it pretty much every year, but we probably should do it twice a year. Yeah. There's waste, there's different things, there's just, and those things add up and hurt your profit line for sure. So when managing money, I feel like knowing your numbers, knowing your expenses, having a CFO or someone else look at them, ask questions, find someone who will call you out and say no. And if you just have yes man people around you and yes sir, yes ma'am stuff, those are not the right kind of people. Sure, you need them in your company. People are like, whatever you say, we're going to do it. But you also need a couple people to call you out. Yeah. And be like, I don't know. I don't think we need this. And here's why. Yeah. And so anyways, that's some of my kind of experience in the last kind of few years.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I mean, do you have anything you want to share on that, or I'm kind of curious on the money finance side as the father-son thing. So you want to jump into that?
In terms of what do you mean?
I would actually like to know, because most people that are watching this know one of us, obviously, or both, and they like the father-son thing's unique. It's different, and this is not forced on you. This is something that we've decided we wanted to do, and a lot of kids don't want to do this. So I'm just curious, like, I feel like I've taught my kids in a time where we've done a lot of fun things and spent a lot of money, been around a lot of nice things, that you could be spoiled, or that you didn't learn about money. Because it wasn't like I had there was some whiteboard experiences that we've had together. But most of the time, it wasn't like I was like sharing, like, read this book, or like, here's how you budget. Is there anything that sticks out to you in particular that me or your mom taught, or both of us taught from a money perspective? And if the answer is no, I mean, it's okay. It might break my heart just a little bit. But do you think there's anything that we did? Because people might want to know here.
It's interesting. It's interesting because you're right. We did grow up with money, with travel, with opportunities, seeing what you were doing, building a business. So it could have happened where we were spoiled. But I don't think you guys gave us really anything. Like, you gave us cool experiences and memories, but like, you didn't just hand me a new car or pay for my first house or give me money to go do anything. Sure, you might have paid for my school a little bit here and there, but like, I came home from my mission and I bought my own car. I started my own business. I did this and that. So like, I think you guys led by example really well instead of just giving to us. And that's huge, because all of my younger siblings, I think they have the same kind of drive that I do. I don't think any of them are spoiled, or none of them will be. So I think that goes to show what you guys did, but I think it was just leading by example, showing, hey, I want to do this and this and this. Here's the businesses I've run. Here's the connections you need to have. You always talk about building relationships and how to build businesses, but it's not like you're pushing it on us. You're just showing us what you do, and in turn, it teaches us what we should be doing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But I have liked an idea you've talked about in the past, is when you were a certain level, you're making $60,000 a year, you thought, I'm going to go buy a house that's meant for a person who makes $100,000 a year, because it's going to push me to make $100,000 a year now. And then when you're making $100,000 a year, you sold your house and bought a new house that was meant for someone who makes $250,000 a year, because you're like, it's a higher payment. I need to make more money. I'm going to go do it. And it pushed you to build more. Not saying that's good advice to go outspend what you can do, but you pushed yourself in that way. Yeah. And you did it with all things. You would want to do more business, do more things, and get more things because it helped push you to do more. And having more kids pushed you to do more too. So that was an interesting thing I've always thought about. Not that I do that quite yet, but like, I like that idea of I'm going to push myself so hard that I have to reach my goal almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I didn't know that I definitely said that to you. And that is a good, I've always pushed myself on the next house. It was like, okay, it's a little bit out of budget. It's a little bit out of budget. And again, I don't know if that's the right advice, but it became my new goal because there was no other way. Like I've never doubted myself and my ability. And I felt like the biggest thing when we were talking about finances and family and stuff, I feel like it's also been partly my job to teach my kids to dream and push to dream bigger. And I don't know if I've done that, but I every time we've done something cool, I try to take a moment to be like, hey, this is really cool. This was really expensive. You two can have this thing, someday with your families, but it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to, a bit instill that.
And that's cool too, because like you grew up in a normal, lower middle class family, yeah. And you said the first time you flew like in a first class seat or private was when you were in your 30s?
Yeah, late 20s. Yeah.
So you didn't even understand what was out there, what was possible, that you could make, I don't know, we'll say $1 million a year. You didn't know you could do these different things and travel the way you do. And so now that I have that experience at a young age, I know what's possible, what you can do.
Yeah.
And it also has like helped me to be like, okay, well, I don't crave money per se. I'm not motivated by money or by fancy things because I've seen what it is and I've experienced it. And now it's like, okay, well, I want to make money and build businesses for like a legacy for me and not so much to get the next fancy thing or try the next thing because I've experienced it. I know what it's like and I know what's out there. And it's kind of humbled me in a way of like, I don't totally need all of that, but it's good to see like everything that's possible in life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Look, I'm a big proponent on motivating. I feel like all the kids based upon, I like to pay to motivate like a business for grades and stuff. And so that's something that, with inflation, I feel like your siblings have gotten better dollars per A, but I'm all about, getting good grades. And that's kind of like a business for them. So every week, not every report card, every week they have to show me their grades. They get paid for, if they maintain A's, only A's, no B's. And they're motivated for it. Cause then when Cole's like, hey, I need lunch money, it's like, you've earned it. Like I don't have to give them, they're earning it. And it's not like a ton of money, but it's enough for them to kind of pay. And I think my parents instilled that in me. I remember my parents teaching me about finances and having the jars, the saving when I was mowing lawns, 10% to tithing, for the church and savings, et cetera. So not to get too elementary, but I think everyone learns differently. I think that's one thing that he said probably, again, better than me is leading by example. I've got a lot of really wealthy friends too who are like, I want to send my kid here to learn whatever. And it's like the best learning is always going to be, through example and seeing lifestyle, seeing the way we do things or seeing how we pay or talk to people, but knowing your numbers. And it's okay that your kids, I remember one thing, you remember that time I pulled out a whiteboard and talked about what things cost in life?
Yes. I think it was at dinner.
Yeah, it was after dinner.
I was probably 16 maybe?
Yeah, it was like 15 years ago probably. But we were paying for expensive things and I was like, I wonder if the kids know like how expensive things are. I don't know if you've ever done this, but like it was actually probably time to do it again. But yeah. People take things for granted, including kids. So it's like kids know what money is. So one thing that was interesting, I think, was asking your kids how much the value of something that's important to them, like shoes or, like some Nike Airs that might be $200 or $300, not like the Travis Scott ones, but like, things that they might like. NBA League Pass, they know is $200. That's expensive.
Yeah.
And so first and foremost, having people understand what's expensive to them and what things cost. and then writing it down. I literally got a whiteboard and I was writing it down. I was like, okay, so NBA League Pass, $200. Do you know how much like a cell phone is every month? Okay, that times 6. Okay, do you know how much car insurance is? And I put it all up on the board. Mortgage.
I remember we were just like, well, why do you pay for that? Car insurance, it's a waste of money. That's stupid. Why do you pay for this? That's dumb. Why don't you just not? Like I don't think we even understood why things cost, why you do things, or all the hidden things you didn't even know about. Like when I first came home from my mission and we were like, hey, we sat together and we looked at our budget and my budget, and you're like, hey, you need to make this much, kind of what we talked about, to pay for your expenses. And you kept giving me a list of more and more things I have to pay for every month. And I'm like,
oh crap.
Are you sure? Like all of these things? And it kept going longer and longer and longer. And I'm like, I don't need to pay for any of this. This is dumb. So it just, we aren't aware of it too.
So I think, financial intelligence,
you gotta talk
education,
to your kids.
Just teaching them then they'll appreciate it, I think, even more. So I keep going back to the elementary stuff, but I know it's not about that. You can do that on a huge scale, even with your staff. I've seen that with some of my executive team where they're like, whoa, we're paying so-and-so this much. I don't know if we're getting that much value out of it. Mm-hmm. And so, letting your staff, going on a bigger scale, letting your team knowing what the expenses are, because I remember hiding it, not on purpose, but I just didn't want them to be involved in those decisions.
Yeah.
So I was signing up for things, paying for things as a company, and it was just me looking at it. And so now when you have other people looking at it, they're like, whoa, why are we paying that much to this person or to this vendor or to the Cox Communications or whatever it is? Can we go back and renegotiate? And that's the other thing, is you can go back and renegotiate expenses. So anyways, going on a tangent with the finances and kids and scaling, knowing your numbers, understanding them, teaching them is a game changer.
Yeah. So I know we've probably hit on this in the past, but what are some of the things in your business that stress you out or overwhelm you with your finances?
I would love to say that I'm not stressed out in the finances of the business, but I am. I constantly am thinking about the need to grow and sustain the business. And so I don't know that I should be that way because we do have a long-standing business now, but I think about, look, if you got 35 employees and half of them have someone that they're related to that's at home.
Yeah.
So now you're at 45 and they got kids. And so all of a sudden there's like 100 people
that depend on you,
that depend on each other and on me.
Yeah.
And I feel like this big responsibility. So from a finance perspective, I think it's good to take a step back sometimes and realize, like, this is a big deal. Now, do I lose sleep over it sometimes? Yeah, I actually do. The risk associated with business, the hard work. So, I'm trying to think of a good example of like.
Well, I can. I mean, it's hard everyone talks about being a business owner is hard. It's a lot of hard work. And I can give you an example just from a real estate deal. When a real estate deal happens, I work with a realtor, I work with an appraiser, I work with a contractor, I work with an investor, I work with my partner, I work with a staging company, an insurance agent. They all get paid no matter what. I get paid after all of them are paid and the deal's done, whatever's left over.
Yeah, great example.
So they don't care. The risk isn't on them. The insurance agent's going to get paid because I bought the house. So is the realtor. I only get paid by the profit. So there's so much pressure on us too to perform and do what we need to do to make everyone else money, keep the economy moving, and to build ourselves whatever we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great example. So, I mean, you feel that stress. I mean, sometimes, because I've seen you actually trying to, you're closing a deal and it's like the lender's calling you, the money's calling you, the realtor's calling you, escrow's calling you. And it's like, it can be overwhelming. And, the money's got to hit tomorrow and they need a document or a tax form or it happens, I feel like, every deal, everything you do, every business transaction, it's stressful like that. Yeah.
That's why it's good to hire a team and have them partner with you to do things.
It is. I think that is a good part as far as scaling businesses is having the team members, which we're not going to get into today. But that's a great example. I mean, I'd say my stresses are related to staffing and clients. I feel like making sure my staff is working at its at its best potential, and we're our own little tribe community that the culture is important. So, when a couple people are off on a higher level, it can affect a lot of people. So that keeps me up at night, stresses me out. Clients, we're big on testimonials.
Yeah.
If we get a couple negative testimonials, I care. And sometimes I care too much. And so sometimes I'd like to kind of take a step away.
I get that. Yeah.
And so those are probably constant things that are on my mind with the business, but really do love the business. I think that's why you get paid as an entrepreneur more, because we're taking on that stress.
Yeah.
If you're not stressed out about it, I'd be more concerned. If you don't care and you're not, well, I shouldn't even say care, but you're not stressed out about at staying up at night every once in a while. I mean, if you're staying up every single night, then you need to change your business model. But there's several things for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So to finish with all that, personal finances, business finances, money management, all it comes down to is just knowing your numbers and being aware of it, constantly reviewing it. And if you hire someone on, being able to compensate for that pay, and hopefully that brings more income in. If you need to do certain deals, knowing what you're getting into and just being aware of all the numbers. So
being aware, putting yourself in a position so you can succeed. And I think if you know your numbers, you can put yourself in that position.
Yeah, I like it. Cool. Well, let's finish up with our sweet, sour, and service like we always do.
Sweet.
So I'm assuming you want me to go first. You don't know yet?
I can go.
Okay, sure. Go for it.
My sweet, as simple as this sounds, and you guys know this is important to us, and we share this partly so you can potentially share this at your dinner tables or with your friends or with your family or little kids. So it's, believe it or not, it's I've never had a bad experience doing this with friends or family. So we like to do it every time to share this message with you, and maybe it makes a difference. And also you get to know us a little better. Sweet today, there's something about the smelling of cut green grass in the neighborhood, in the yard. And so that is a sweet to me. One of my favorite smells is the sounds silly, but it's a big deal. A lot of places don't have grass, or it's snowing right now. That's a sweet. My sour was up very early this morning, earlier than I like my routine to start. And I'd love to tell you there's a good reason for it, but there's just not. No good reason. But my clock got me up early for some reason. So that's my sour, because I know it's going to be a little hard afternoon. And then my service. My service was I made a phone call to someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time this morning, and just because. And phone calls are hard these days, right? It's easy to email and text, and I just let that person know how much I appreciate him in my life and his example. And so that would be my service for today. That's
great. We got to do that more. Send more thank you notes. Text more people, reach out. I got to work on that more with clients and investors. So that's a good note. Sweet is the place we live. It is 70 degrees today and sunny. It is so nice out, and I love being able to be outside. Most places right now you can't be, so it's awesome. Sour is, I don't know if I have any sours today. Nothing else I can think of, so we'll skip sour. And service is, one of my partners is out of town yesterday and today, and so I've been handling a lot of the legwork for him, which has been just a little more work on my plate, but letting him enjoy the time.
Nice.
So it's been good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing this time and this podcast with us, and we look forward to seeing you next.